We need to understand why many students of color do not feel at home on our campus. Why in some cases they feel that they're inappropriately singled out, or in other cases ignored. We need to understand what's going on in our classrooms, what's going on campus socially, and what institutional practices and policies are problematic or prejudicial. The second goal is to start to flesh out a series of next steps. What do we need to do to improve the culture here, to make this a more inclusive environment? How is our community going to respond? And I have a third goal in mind, and that is for every one of us to leave here both troubled and inspired, motivated to make personal commitment to positive change. Now, our students asked me to say a few words about actions we're committed to, so I'll conclude my comments with some plans that we already have in place. You may remember that Jean Arnold, our Chief Diversity Officer, is overseeing the development of an inclusion action plan for our college community this year. That process is not yet complete, but there are some things that we know we're going to be doing. First, you'll probably be interested in knowing that we've established a new Board of Trustees subcommittee on diversity and inclusion, and that will be chaired by Troy Datcher, class of 1990. If Troy's name sounds familiar to you, it might be because he was recently featured on our website for being named to this year's Ebony Power 100 list. That committee will work with Jean Arnold to provide guidance and support for the college's diversity and inclusion initiatives. Here on campus, we know we need a clear focus on cultural competence training for members of our community. One strategy is to use the IDI, the Intercultural Development Inventory, as a tool. There's information about the IDI on our website, but basically it provides an opportunity for reflection and insight about one's personal experiences with diversity, and it also suggests areas and strategies for development. All members of our senior administrative team, President's Council, and I have taken the IDI. Many others on campus have taken the IDI as well, including a number of faculty and staff who have been trained to administer it and help interpret the results. This spring, all college life staff, including the student res life staff and Greek leaders, will take the IDI. And we're encouraging other groups, student leaders, academic departments, administrative offices to take this as well. With regard to programs on campus, Dean Ramsey will be working with Dean Curry and in consultation with our students on the redesign of some of the programming carried out by the Intercultural Resource Center to better meet our students' needs and desires. So you can expect to start seeing some changes there by next fall. New member education for students in Greek organizations will include a component on diversity and inclusion beginning immediately. We'll ask Student Senate and the College Activities Board to prioritize programming that is designed to bring different groups of students together to foster more interaction between those groups. With regard to social space, our residence life staff is working with students to identify improved space for the D House for next year, space that will be conducive to hosting social events. There are other things that are in process that we've begun to work on as well, like transportation to DC and other urban centers as an example. We need to determine what the greatest transportation needs are before we put a whole program into place. But you can expect us to try out some ideas this spring, specifically some opportunities for weekend travel to DC. Under Jean Arnold's leadership, we'll conduct a campus climate survey over the next few weeks. You'll be receiving an email about this very soon. I encourage all of you to be heard, to take the time to complete this survey. Next fall, we'll call you all back together to provide a summary of our findings and to talk more about our plans to respond. Another area of concern raised by our students is related to the classroom climate and the composition of our faculty. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Provost Chris Sappy to make some comments related to the academic program, opportunities for training and development for our faculty, and faculty hiring. Chris?
Thank you, President Riggs, and hello, everyone. As the college's Chief Academic Officer and Dean of the Faculty, I'm here to talk about steps we have already taken and steps we plan to take in the coming months to address the concerns that we have heard from our students. Please know that my faculty colleagues, and I'm pleased to see so many here today, are wholeheartedly dedicated, along with myself, to creating learning environments that are inclusive, welcoming, and respectful of the differences among us in terms of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and socioeconomic background. First, in response to the expressed concerns regarding microaggressions and acts of unconscious bias in some of our learning spaces and faculty offices, we have initiated a series of faculty development workshops to promote intercultural competence among our teacher scholars and our creative artists, and to help them to be more effective in working with students from historically underrepresented groups in our campus community. In fact, this past Friday, over 50 members of the college faculty and administration attended a workshop that was held on our campus and facilitated by Dr. Becky Packard from Mount Holyoke College on best practices to encourage and support a diversity of students to achieve success in higher education. This workshop was organized to help our faculty to become more effective teachers and more effective mentors. In addition to these faculty development workshops, I am now strongly encouraging my faculty and administrative colleagues to complete the Intercultural Development Inventory, IDI, which President Riggs mentioned in her remarks. Academic departments and programs are encouraged to take the IDI as part of our college-wide Inclusion Action Plan. Department and program chairs who are interested in requesting the administration of the IDI should contact my office or the Office of Diversity and Inclusion as soon as possible. Next, I want to assure everyone who is here today that this faculty and administration are deeply committed to recruiting and hiring well-qualified teacher scholars and creative artists who are more representative of the differences in race and ethnicity that we see at both national and international levels. During my tenure as provost, we have made some progress in recruiting and hiring highly qualified individuals who contribute to the racial and ethnic diversity of our faculty. In fact, during the present academic year, I'm delighted to tell you that we have already hired 2 women of color who will commence tenure-track appointments at the college next fall. But that's not enough. Over the next several years, approximately 10% of our faculty will enter into retirement, and we will work diligently to hire outstanding, diverse educators to replace them. We will use numerous resources in order to attract diverse teacher scholars to Gettysburg College, including the Consortium for Faculty Diversity at Liberal Arts Colleges, an organization that we, Gettysburg, coordinate to ensure that the college conducts inclusive faculty searches. In order to build upon recent successes in recruiting and hiring diverse faculty members, Chief Diversity Officer Jean Arnold and I will initiate an inclusion advocate program for faculty searches beginning in the 2016-17 academic year. Beginning next fall, every full-time faculty search process will include a tenured member from the relevant department or program who is trained to ensure inclusive hiring practices throughout the entire process. A training program for those departmental and program representatives who would like to serve as inclusion advocates will be offered beginning later this spring. Jean and I will be planning these programs as we prepare to launch full-time faculty search processes during the second half of this calendar year. In closing, I want each and every one of you to know the depth of my commitment to diversity and inclusion at this college. For me, it's not only professional, it's personal. I commend all of the students who have organized this important event to raise awareness of these critical issues that we must address together in meaningful and timely ways. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Fernandez, and although I am not Spike Lee or Steven Spielberg, I am the creator of the film we are about to present today. I want to start off by thanking my friends whose thoughtful and hard work allowed this film to come to fruition. I want to say two things. First, when I originally envisioned this video, I envisioned an all-encompassing film that not only spoke to the real-life experiences of students of color on campus, but also uncovered why those experiences exist. Why oftentimes it is in our unconscious actions, our ignorance, and our privilege that prompt us to overlook the experiences of those different from us. And reflecting on this and keeping the time frame in mind, I realized that we all come with different lived experiences and different wealths of knowledge that vary as it relates to intersectional identities. So yes, while this is a video that does reflect the lives of some students of color, it is far from all-encompassing. It doesn't even scratch the surface. It is the surface. So after today, I challenge you all, regardless of how much you know or how much you don't, about the experiences of those different from you, to scratch the surface, to dig deep and continue this uncomfortable conversation, because it is in the most discomfort where we learn. Secondly, the name of this film, this movement, is We Are Gettysburg Too. This statement, in 4 words, speaks volumes. It indicates that our past has shown that we aren't Gettysburg, and I think some of the anecdotes you'll see today will be proof that we haven't. In the fall of 2015, Gettysburg had 2,632 full-time students enrolled. And of those 2,632 individuals enrolled, 2,060 are white. This means that amongst all 4 class years, about 572 students do not fit the normal Gettysburgian. And that includes domestic students of color and international students, whose experiences at Gettysburg College are very different. But this movement, this film, what we seek to achieve here is more than just numbers, because admitted at Gettysburg College does not always mean accepted at Gettysburg College. That is what We Are Gettysburg Too means. It's about being on a campus that implicitly and explicitly shows us that we are not. It's about no longer being invisible, no longer being silent, and no longer allowing others to write the narratives of our identity. So please, enjoy this video, think critically about your role in our community and beyond, and let go of the fear that prevents you from asking questions and being uncomfortable. And remember that we are Gettysburg Too.
To the Board of Trustees.
To the professors of Gettysburg College.
To the Board of Trustees.
To the Office of College Life.
To the Center for Global Education.
To the Intercultural Resource Center.
To the Department of Public Safety.
To the Admissions Office.
To Academic
To the Office of Diversity and Inclusion.
To the Athletics Department.
To the faculty of Gettysburg College.
To the Office of Student Activities and Greek Life.
To the LGBTQ community at Gettysburg College.
To the President's Office.
To the Office of Residential and First Year Programs.
To the Office of Communications.
To Counseling Services.
To the students of Gettysburg College.
We are Gettysburg Too.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey White. I'm a junior here at Gettysburg College, and I'm a religious studies major. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, but I live in York, Pennsylvania now.
My name is Shanti Stewart. I'm a sophomore. I'm from Philadelphia, and I identify as a Black female.
My name is Janae Harris. I'm from East Harlem, New York. I'm class of 2016, and I identify as a Black and Latina female who is cisgendered.
I'm Jasmine Santana. I'm a senior. I'm from Washington Heights in New York City. I identify as Latina, and I have an individualized major titled Language and Culture, but it's sociolinguistics.
My name is Jerome Clark. I am a junior at Gettysburg College. I come from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I identify as a first-generation Afro-Trinidadian Black male on campus.
Hi, my name is Tiara Loren Riggins. I am a junior here at Gettysburg College, and I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I identify as an African American woman.
My name is Ashley Fernandez. I am a senior from Washington Heights, and I identify as an Afro-Latina Polynesian heterosexual woman.
My name is Jasmine Matos. I am from the Bronx. I'm a health sciences major. I'm a senior, and I identify as Latina.
My name is Michael De Leon. I'm a sophomore, sociology major. I'm from Philly, and I identify as a Black and Latino gay male.
I remember moving in with my grandfather, and almost my entire family came to help me move in. That was my first year. I came for the higher security orientation. And another gentleman was moving in. It was a white male, and he asked my grandfather what sport I played, and what was I doing. And my grandfather responded, he's a history major. And I think that is, in essence, what We Are Gettysburg 2 really means. It means that we are not just, a number. We're not just athletics. We're not just what we bring to you, but what you can give to us. And We Are Gettysburg 2 means that you invest in me just as much as I invest in you. And this is a partnership, and not just me working to earn your respect. It's not just me, doing what I feel I need to do to survive. We Are Gettysburg 2 means that we are a community that's going to grow together and that lives together. So, yeah.
I think that we can make this campus more inclusive by actually promoting confrontational conversations. I think a lot of times here, especially in the classroom, students are silenced in a sense. Professors are afraid to allow students of color in particular to express their thoughts and their feelings because they feel like this is too close to home. It's such a sensitive topic.
Gettysburg, in its curricula and in the actual practice of teaching, needs a little work in developing just sensitive pedagogy in regards to race relations. I've taken 7 classes in my philosophy major, and we had talked about black philosophy philosophers, like literally not at all. I oftentimes have to introduce a perspective of African Americans in economics classes and ethics classes, and this is important, but I feel like if I didn't say this, certain people in the classrooms, including the professors, wouldn't speak up for specific communities and wouldn't speak up for very real issues that happen outside of the Gettysburg campus today.
I think definitely there's been a lot of times where I'm looked at as the person that needs to speak for all Black people, especially in the classroom. I think most of the time, professors and my peers, they do it kind of unknowingly, but still at the same time, I kind of get the sense that, oh, it's my turn to speak now, that we're talking about slavery or the Black experience, or if what's going on in the news comes up in class and it's kind of like, oh, what's your perspective, Shanties? Like what do other Black people think about this issue? But sometimes I feel torn because I do want to say something, but at the same time, I don't want to be the person who speaks for my race because my experience is my experience. It's not everyone's experience.
It's nothing new. It is not surprising that in a class discussing race, we're reading works by white authors and that I don't see myself represented in the curriculum. But instead of being okay with that and just continuing to thrive in something that's blatantly wrong and uncomfortable, I questioned it. And questioned how it is that you can equate things like white women's oppression with slavery. And I think triggering conversations like that is where I really get to kind of make my peers uncomfortable and think about their own position in the classroom, their own position in society, and even question my professor. If you're going to teach this class, why is it that we're reading this?
How did your professor respond?
She was very defensive. She was insulted. She felt like I was trying to control the classroom. And quite frankly, she found it disrespectful. And so that's something else that I've had to negotiate and kind of learn to cope with is, when do I draw the line between trying to develop these conversations and kind of break these different scenarios that include microaggressions, and when do I look out for myself, because at the end of the day, she's a professor and she holds power to my grade.
Exactly.
And I am a student.
Yeah, I've had similar experiences where I've felt the need to silence my own thoughts in order to appease to my professor.
The most frustrating part about being a Latina at Gettysburg College is basically being targeted because of my accent and people making assumptions about me and my identity because of my accent and where I come from. There has been many times where my educational ability or my knowledge has been downplayed or just stereotyped to be a certain way. Like, for example, people are shocked to know that I get one of the highest grades on an exam, or professors are shocked when they see me perform well or ask questions. And that shouldn't be. Those assumptions should not be made about me, because my accent does not, it has nothing to do with my educational ability. Like, I am just as valuable as anyone else.
I feel like professors really, they allow things to happen in the classroom. And it sort of validates other people's opinions that are completely wrong. It invalidates my experiences, and it validates those who are not even aware that they have privilege. And that I have a problem with.
And one specific instance of belligerent racism that I can recall was last semester, two Greek chapter houses came together and had a ghetto fabulous party. And in this party, more or less people made a mockery of working class black and brown folks, made a mockery of the culture that they celebrate, the music that they celebrate, and it was all for fun. And the thing is, that's understandable that things can be for fun, but when it becomes mockery, and when it becomes a mockery that is very much rooted in kind of a racist ideology, kind of an insensitive ideology, no matter who belongs to these chapter houses, that is extremely exclusive on this campus.
Recognize your privilege. As a straight, cis, white male, recognize your privilege. Fraternities, Greek life, is made for you. The campus climate has been molded to fit your identity to a T.
I think oftentimes when students of color first get to Gettysburg, it's obvious that you are not a part of the majority. And that pressure to assimilate into the majority is real, and it's toxic. And you surrender a part of your identity every time you decide to stay silent. And this movement is reclaiming that identity. It's reclaiming the narrative of that identity, because who I am is what got me to Gettysburg. And it's easy to fall into that peer pressure of surrendering your identity because it's immediately rewarded. You're conveniently invited to that pregame that everyone is talking about. You're conveniently one of the boys. You're seen as funny and cool because now you fit the narrative that they have associated with your identity. But on the contrary, you're never seen as intelligent, as well-spoken. It's easy to fall into that.
A lot of times, Gettysburg misses the point. Often Gettysburg thinks that they're dealing with the issues that come with racism without really seeing that they're not getting to the root of the problem. And so people kind of blindly think that there's the Intercultural Resource Center, there's Diaspora House, there's a couple of Black faculty, and that should be enough, that should suffice. Not only is that insulting and not enough representation, which is key, but those outlets that is often thought that we have aren't functional within themselves because they weren't really meant to be functional. We lack visibility, and so with spaces like Diaspora House and the IRC, they're often put in the middle of nowhere, in the corners. Most students, unless they're students of color, don't even know where the IRC is located.
The first time that I was made hyper aware of my Blackness on this campus would be during freshman orientation week. And everybody was sitting around in circles, sort of trying to explain their past and explain how they've reached the point of entering Gettysburg College. And someone questioned, or didn't question, they assumed that I had lived a rough past and that every experience that I had would be the stereotypical Black experience. Meaning that I grew up in poverty, that I attended a poor public school, and that basically my lifestyle, I've only reached Gettysburg College because of my Blackness, and my lifestyle, my poverty helped me to reach this opportunity.
Going to like a boarding school.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had experiences here where they just assumed that I would go to a public school and like this like stereotypical public school, and when they hear that I've had the privilege of like going
they
to...
sort of change their whole attitude towards you.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily, oh, like this is a great thing, we have something in common, we've both been to private school, but it's more, oh damn, I'm shocked, now I don't feel as if I have this power over you.
Yeah.
And that completely throws me off.
The thing that makes me most uncomfortable is when people always ask me, like, how did you get here? How did you get to Gettysburg? And it's because I'm Latina, I have to have come to Gettysburg because a program helped me or someone helped me. And like, it's impossible for a Latina to find Gettysburg College on their own.
It is okay that I struggle with being gay, with being Black, with being Latino on this campus. I am allowed to have those feelings. And you can't tell me that I can't have those feelings because you do not have my experience.
In time, being silent on these issues only adds to it. I would definitely encourage everyone to get involved, ask your friends, ask your students about how they're feeling about these issues, bring it up in class, have open discussions. This is the only way that we can educate everyone and kind of get our voices heard.
I'm well aware that I put my mental health at risk and that I overexhaust myself when I have to assert my identity in these white spaces. I'm well aware of that. But what I'm even more aware of is that by not asserting my identity, by staying silent and compliant to a system that doesn't believe in my identity or the success of my identity, is going to kill my spirit a lot faster than me being exhausted.
We at Gettysburg too is important for several reasons, but I think the most keen reason that it's important is that the two aspect, the fact that we need to be acknowledged just as much as white students are, that we offer just as much as white students do on campus. And I feel like that's the inclusion part of the statement, saying that we are re-owning this campus, a campus that we want to be at, a campus that we want to see do better, and bring in more people who are of color and are from these urban, diverse backgrounds to better and, make this campus a greater space for everyone. So We at Gettysburg too does not exclude anyone.
There's a disconnect often where it's perceived that this movement is only for students of color and should be done by students of color. And that truly doesn't help at all.
I think that everyone should participate in open dialogue and not take this as an attack on the school or an attack at all the white people at Gettysburg College, because that's not what this is. We're making this video because we want to educate people. At the end of the day, our purpose is education.
We are far past the point of pity. We don't need anybody to feel sorry.
As you probably saw on the screen, I'll say it again. My name is Janae Harris. I'm a senior in the English major, but more importantly, I'm the president of the Black Student Union on this campus, as well as the diversity peer educator. Having these kinds of conversations around race and racism at PWI's predominantly white institutions, like Gettysburg, is not something new. At least once a day, my friends and I experience something, whether in a classroom, at work, a social event, that makes us think critically about race and our experience as students of color. I know it may seem like this is our choice to have these discussions, but it is not. We continue this discourse because it is a constant struggle in our everyday lives, one that has systemically positioned us at a disadvantage and continues to affect us at an institution that is supposed to be our own. Hint the movement, we are Gettysburg too. Don't get me wrong, I don't want your sympathy, because I chose Gettysburg College, and I have had several experiences here that have helped me develop myself as a scholar and a leader, in and outside of the classroom. However, some of these experiences are deeply rooted in the racist rhetoric that thrives within our classrooms and social spaces. Instances like professors shying away from confrontational conversation because they are not equipped with the tools to promote and facilitate discourse between white students and students of color, or gender ratios that turn into race ratios when students of color show up at a frat door. Gettysburg was not made for us. However, it doesn't mean that it can't be. We promote diversity, equity, and inclusion so much. Well, it's time for us to put those values to work and bring our campus together. This is not only about the students of color experience, it's about the international student experience and the faculty and administration of color experience as well. As minority groups on campus, we often spearhead events and discussions around social justice, especially ones that impact our communities. But these issues aren't exclusively affecting us. They are a part of your time, your campus culture, and your experience at Gettysburg as well. Again, we are not asking for your sympathy, nor are we asking that you become activists for all students of color overnight. However, we do ask that you engage in open conversation around race and acknowledge that racism thrives on our campus and in the world in general. Only then we can work to come up with thorough action plans to unite our campus and create a Gettysburg that is truly great. Thank you. At this time, I invite Jasmine Santana to come up, and the rest of the panelists to join the stage.
All of the members of most of one race living in one place on campus. And so I don't really agree with the whole thing. But I'm not going to say there's no race on campus. I'm not going to say that. I've experienced it. But with fraternities in particular, I just feel.
So I think that has a lot to do with what we already talked about. We don't all have the same experiences, and so while you haven't expressed that, and felt it on campus, that's probably why you're not up here. Students who were in the video and who are sitting up here have experienced certain situations on this campus where they felt the need to speak up. One of the comments that you made about D-House being exclusive and adding to the divide of the campus, I think that you're misinformed in that D-House is a cultural thing. If we had everything on this campus that was cultural, like the Latin American Student Association, the Black Student Association, the Asian Students Association, these are all cultural things where students on this campus can go to feel welcomed. And it's not closed off to students who are Black, for the Black Student Union, the same way as the Gettysburg Association, the African Student Association isn't only for African students. These are open to everyone. And so I don't think that those are necessarily exclusive institutions on campus.
And just to add on really quickly, D-House is a place where we students of color can celebrate our roots and celebrate where we come from. We're not just living there just to be amongst, it's just for students of color. Anybody who wants to celebrate the diaspora, the African diaspora, anyone's invited to come to D House and to live in D House.
Well, I just want to clarify. I'm not saying I think that like, I'm not coming at D House and like saying that D House in some ways like they only let like people of color in or something. I'm just saying like when you're somewhere where you're living on campus, like we're trying to spread diversity on campus and we want diversity everywhere, like spread evenly among the campus. Instead of just looking centrally in one area.
Diversity, that's a big word, right? And to break it down, it's not just about color. It's about many different aspects. And so, yes, you're saying that like we're all central in one location at Diaspora House, but diversity is all around the campus. And so I think that to assume that by staying in like a consolidated space is not spreading diversity, I think that we need to expand upon the word diversity in order to be better informed about what that is and how we are spreading it around the campus.
And also, I really appreciate your question because it brings up some serious issues. You talk about how D House needs to emphasize diversity, and it does. You know, last semester we had numerous conversations where not a lot of students who weren't of color came to. Another point that's really important to understand is that there is a D House, but we also have ATO and several other fraternity houses. We have theme houses where it could be argued that it's exclusively white students. And so we have to make sure that we're also opening all of the spaces to everybody and not just focusing on a space where students of color feel is their place to breathe, it's their oasis, in a campus full of a majority of white students where they don't feel welcome on a daily basis.
And lastly, I think it's a great question. I welcome you to think critically of how racism thrives within your fraternity and what privileges you have as a male.
Hello? Okay. So this is like completely shifting. But you're talking about the diversifying the faculty. Now, are you going to do that by setting like a set percentage of diversity, or are you going to go recruit in different areas that need to be found? Because the skill of like anyone should still be incorporated, right?
So clearly we are committed to recruiting and hiring well-qualified teachers, scholars, artists in each and every discipline of the college. And I don't think it's necessarily focused in a particular area. There are some disciplines where there are more well-qualified applicants who come from different backgrounds. But clearly we are committed to building upon the success that we've recently had. I would say over the last 9 years, we've increased the proportion by 30%. The numbers are small, but I think we can do a lot better. And that's why I'm committed, along with Jean Arnold, and we'll work with the faculty to recruit faculty who are racially and ethnically diverse, so that the faculty reflects the differences among our students. And we're going to have to do that in a timely manner. It's not something that can take a long time.
Additionally, yes, it's great to have that representation of people of color in our faculty, but it's also important to keep in mind that the goal is to have culturally competent faculty, and that means that they are aware and that they know how to handle situations in the classroom. And I think that's also what, I'm assuming, okay? I think that's also what we would like to have and to include in our classrooms.
I'd just like to add one.
It's not just
hiring faculty of color and faculty that represents more of the student body is not going to solve the problem. We also have to focus on the faculty that is at Gettysburg College, and that's where the IDI survey comes in and the climate study comes in. We want to make the faculty that's here more culturally competent.
I was just going to add, if underneath that question was really the question, are we going to have some type of quota system or percentages for hiring? The answer to that is absolutely no. We are not under any kind of quota or a system of that sort. We are, as has been stated, looking for the most qualified faculty. What we're wanting to do is broaden the pool of people that we consider qualified. So we're advertising different places. We'll make connections with associations and PhD organizations for newly minted PhDs. We're going to do a variety of things, but numbers and quotas in the way that I think I was hearing the question is not what we will be doing.
So we were, can you hear me? Yes, no? So we were talking a lot about academic diversity, and I guess the question I want to pose is, how does one create a academic and curricular environment that is truly diverse, that does not merely seem like, for example, I took a Marx class, and it seemed almost shoehorned in Black Marxism that wasn't really written by Black Marxists. So what I'm posing is how do you see a curriculum structure that doesn't feel like it's putting diverse needs in for the sake of diversity, that is truly creating a intersectional discussion about things like sexuality that encompasses things like the Black male homosexuality or the Black woman homosexuality, for example.
Okay, this is the easy one. That's your answer. By actually looking at Black educators, Black philosophers, you know, things, Black sociologists, when you are in these classrooms, instead of using, you know, it's okay to use white educators in certain instances, but if the whole class is on Black Marxists, maybe you should use people who study that, who are Black, and who have had those experiences, and have reflected on those experiences, and put that into their syllabi, so that you can actually hear it from the perspective of a person who has lived it, and who has reflected on it as a Black individual.
And I think it would be great in terms of the diversity of the classroom to understand also the intersectionality of a lot of things. We talk about the, you know, like Black Marxists, but also not believing the hype. A lot of times, and to kind of unpack that, a lot of times professors will have this generalized idea of what the Black community is like. And they'll portray that in their classrooms as opposed to understanding the intersectionality of various identities in the Black community. So it's not all the same. It's not one blanket statement, but it is a series of differences and unique values that everyone holds, and that has to be recognized in the classroom in order for it to be truly diverse and unique.
I guess I would add that I think one of the most hopeful outcomes of this meeting is for our faculty to hear what some of you have expressed. You know, that we the faculty, we can revise our courses. We can revise the curriculum. The faculty have responsibility for the curriculum. And so we have an opportunity to reflect and respond to what we've heard today, and do it in a way that's really meaningful.
Hi. So basically, I'm just someone who wants to be able to treat everyone with proper respect, no matter what race or, you know, religion or anything what they are. So of course I want to, you know, learn whatever I can on how to be a good ally to this kind of movement. But something that I've been noticing that's very concerning to me, like not just on this campus, but like in other like maybe forms of online activism and other things like that, is that in order to be an ally of this movement, you kind of have to be ashamed of the fact that you're white, or you kind of have to sort of beat yourself up over things white ancestors committed or something. And another thing that's really concerning that I've heard about is that if you're white and you have, you know, certain mental illness, like you have depression or anxiety or something, you will get people saying, oh, you're white, you have all this privilege, why should you be depressed, why should you be anything? You know, it's something you can't control, so, you know, and you should be, because you're white, you should have no reason to be depressed or anxiety. And I don't think I want to be, you know, I want to be a good ally, but I don't want it to come at the cost of, you know, me not liking myself or feeling invalidated for being white or being, you know, anything. So I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to answer this one, and thank you so much for your question. That's a really important one. I think like I said, it is important because often the phrase white privilege means that people think that they should feel as though they are guilty because they're white. And I think what's important to understand, someone once told me that it is not true that if you are white, your life is not hard, but it is a reality that your life is not hard because you are white. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important thing to understand, and I don't think that anyone would say that you're that anyone whose life may be hard is not so in any experience because of what they've experienced. Sorry. So I think one really important thing to understand is just that entering spaces where you may not be comfortable is a really great way to start understanding the experiences of other people. So as an example, I am a member of the Black Student Union. And I'm honored to be so because it's a really great community, and I really love being able to hear the experiences of people who are different from myself. And that does not mean that's the only place where those conversations can happen, but it's just an example of one. And so I think that's a great way to start, and it's hard to never, you should never name yourself an ally, but to live life alongside people in a way that it respects who they are is a great way to start changing things.
And just additionally, I'm glad you brought that up. I think in order to be more well-versed and have access to the language to speak on those issues, I would urge you and other people to seek out your resources so you can develop that. By no means are people that are part of marginalized community looking for, let's say, white people to feel ashamed. The terminology for that is white guilt, and that truly does nothing for us. We really want people to be more aware, develop the language, and learn how to advocate side by side. And so we welcome that. And by no means would you be meant to feel ashamed, because ultimately what we want is action to truly make this space inclusive and truly dismantle a system that has oppressed communities.
Just briefly, as Jasmine said, and one scholar said, it's not about guilt if you're white. It's not about guilt, it's about responsibility. And as all of you as students at an elite institution have a responsibility to make the world a more just place. And if you're white, and if you're living in America, you've got that responsibility too. And part of that responsibility is about recognizing, so what privilege is there? It doesn't mean it's your fault you got privilege, but it does mean we have responsibility as citizens and recognizing your position in the society and what that means you can do. One of the fraternities that was involved in the Ghetto Fabulous Party that Jerome mentioned, was talking to some of their members last fall, and that's a group of young men, white men, who recognize their responsibility and are actually doing something about that, not out of guilt, but because they recognize responsibility. And that's the kind of power that you all can have.
Okay, just a final note on like the concepts of white guilt and being a good ally. You will be in a constant state of unlearning what the racial institutions across America have taught you, just like institutional racism, etc. You've grown up in whiteness, I clearly have, and it isn't anything that ends, and you're probably like a really good person, and you never want to be racist or bad, but as we've been stating several times, it's an unconscious thing, microaggressions, and like you don't like walk up to the nearest person of color and ask them how to be a good ally or like what you can do, like Jasmine said, there are tons of resources online, and this is for faculty too. Google these things and don't wait for the student in class to have to tell you what they can be doing better. So.
this is a question from Mara Auditorium, from a student. They're curious as to how to understand how the mixers at fraternities hurt students. If anyone can elaborate on that. There are a few questions, and I know there are some questions on the floor, so if we can keep our responses succinct, but address the question.
How do they hurt people? When you dress up with cornrows and tattoos and basically blackface without painting your face black, that's offensive. You know, that's my culture. I don't walk around sagging my pants and listening to DMX all day. That's not who I am. But you're mocking that. You think it's funny, and it's cool to you when you're doing it because you're like, you know, I can listen to rap too. You know, I enjoy rap, and there's nothing wrong with that. We've got some great rappers out there. But when you dress up for a party and you act those out as if that's who I am, it's offensive. You know, like it's not who I am, and it's not what I want my people to be represented as. Have a Baldwin party. That would be awesome. Read some James Baldwin. That would probably make things better.
Okay, so my name's Anglasia. I'm a sophomore, and I identify as a member of the Greek community. And I think a big thing that the Greek community promotes here at Gettysburg and like Townhall and IFC in general is this sort of cohesiveness and togetherness, right? So when you have these parties and you have these mixers where you're mocking any part of my identity or others, it doesn't promote that message, and it actually like sort of, I guess, encourages that segregation, and it makes me feel, because I probably am the only black girl at the party, it makes me feel like I'm the only black girl who listens. I don't know, it just makes me feel like more alone than I already am feeling. So it emphasizes that feeling a lot.
And just to add on that, I come from the Bronx, and there are people in my community who live the life that you guys are trying to represent at your parties, that you guys are making fun of. There are people who sit at home and listen to rap music and sag the pants and wear hoop earrings and Timberlands. I know some of those people. And the problem is that you guys are taking that and that culture or whatever it is and mocking it and stereotyping it to make fun of it. And that shouldn't be something to make fun of. That's real life. That's the truth.
In the interest of intersectionality, feminism as an umbrella term comes under fire a lot for not actually walking its talk, in the sense that intersectionality is not often as emphasized. There's often a lot of emphasis on the interests of people in general. My question is, in the feminist spaces on Gettysburg College campus, have the women of color and people of color in general on this campus found a safe space, and if not, what can we do about it to make it a more inclusive and far-reaching environment instead of just serving the interests of one group of people?
I think we answered this too, but Google is a good one. Also there's a lot of resources on campus like E-Race and the Center for Public Service, which often hosts dialogues to like gain the language for these conversations. So reach out, don't have us come to you, I think is the best solution for, you know, making sure that we're making a more inclusive and better Gettysburg community.
Also, for the last bit of your question of have the women of color found a safe space, I don't think it's just women of color. I think overall this campus hasn't been a safe space for students of color. And while we have had to make our own space, we're making Gettysburg a safe space, so it's actively happening. No, it wasn't just there.
So current workshops on race and discussions on race have been mentioned, but they're not very well integrated into the college life. Like, I'm a junior and I really don't know much about it. I wasn't really sure who could be a white person and be a white black student union, for example. So obviously we want more of this racial discussion to happen, but where do we anticipate that happening? Do we anticipate it happening in venues that are already around, or do you want this conversation to be more like every day, like in Servo, having this sort of discussion?
Thank you for that. Absolutely. This
conversation is not limited to this ballroom, it's not limited to when you go back to your Greek houses, it's not limited to any specific space. We want it to be generated everywhere. When you go home with your mom, this conversation is, as previously stated, it's a nationwide problem. And when you mentioned not knowing you can be a white person to be issue or access to other, like learning about the language, they're on the website. They're in your emails, they're in your mailboxes. People check your email. No, for real, like I get infuriated when people are ignorant and then they just, oh, I don't know. Did you look to know? And I'm not targeting anyone, but information is out here. We have resources out here, and I really think we should all use them.
Hi, my question for you is, what can we do as your peers? What can we do to help fix racism on campus, or just any aspect of race on campus? Like, how can we make it more diverse here? Because it doesn't just end at talking about racism and race on campus. I want to know if you can tell us what to do in case we don't know. What can we do to help fix that?
I'm going to thank you for your question, but I'm speaking for myself here. I don't know if I can speak for everyone here, but we can't give you an answer for that. There's no clear thing that any one person can do to help this movement going. You have to find that out for yourself. The whole reason why we're all sitting up here telling you how we felt on this campus, the whole purpose of the video was to educate you. I can't sit here and tell you this is exactly what you need to do to fix the problems on this campus. And that's also not something that students should have to do. That is something that the administration should be aware of, in which they are, and that should be the steps that they are thinking about. This isn't something that students here have to fix. And so, everyone was here joking about going Google, but that's really what it is. You have to educate yourself, and you have to figure out what it is that you need to do for yourself. I can't give you an answer for that.
Just wonder if I could add a little bit to that. When you leave today, there will be a piece of paper that I encourage you all to pick up, because it will have a list of activities, ways in which you can engage in some of these conversations in an ongoing way, and they will provide some educational opportunities for you. That's not to say you shouldn't go off on your own and do some educating for yourselves, but there are a series of programs here on campus. Pick up that paper on the way out and commit to one or two of those activities. It'll go a long way.
Do you mind if I try to answer that question before we go on? I think over the last few months, I had a genuine conversation with Janae and all. I think it comes down to being a genuine person and being a genuine friend. I think in trying to reach out to people that you may not be in your comfort zone and trying to have discussions with individuals that you may not feel comfortable with at first sight, but discussing with numerous people and trying to answer that question besides Google, which is a very helpful resource. We all know that. But I think it comes down to being a genuine friend. I think trying to make new friends that you may never have had, and whether that's color, whether that's gender, whether that's becoming gay or not, I think going out of your comfort zone and having to reach out to somebody may help that answer. And I was very nervous to say that.
So we'll take your two questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. I know a lot of you guys have classes soon.
So I know that you're looking into diverse faculty. Is this more focused on just the professors? Or are you going to look into getting more diverse deans, people in academic advising, counseling centers, PG, etc.?
I think it's important to think about the diversity not only of the faculty but the staff and the administration. I think President Riggs and her colleagues on the President's Council are deeply committed to doing this. I think that it's not just the faculty. It's really all divisions and all aspects of our institution. And I think we are deeply committed to doing this.
I would just add that the Inclusion Advocate Program that Provo spoke about earlier, where for every tenured cert, we're going to have a trained faculty member. We're going to do the same thing on the administrative side. So that will be a campus-wide initiative.
Hi, so my question is for the domestic student of color. Could you speak a little more about the importance of being American and being a student of color in comparison to those experiences that are international experiences?
So this wasn't said in the video, but I don't know if she's here. My roommate my freshman year was a girl. They called her Nugget, but her name is Xiao Tong. And coming from East Harlem, from a school where everyone looked like me and everyone talked like me, we all came from the same environment. The only white people I saw were my teachers. Assimilating to Gettysburg culture was very difficult for me, but I also got to see her assimilate as well, coming from China, or, you know, she had lived in the States, but Gettysburg was a whole different experience for her. You know, and I got to see her go through that transition, and it kind of helped me because we bumped heads a lot. We are from two different places. We have two different lived experiences, but we both struggled to assimilate on this campus because people just didn't understand us. They didn't understand how we got here, and they didn't understand our upbringing. So I got to see her grow and become a part of this campus as I grew, and that helped me, you know, put my position as a student of color and a domestic student in perspective, because her family and her values and everything she grew up to know is across 100,000 miles away, you know? So I got to put that in perspective, but Gettysburg was my study abroad. You know, this is not, I assimilated into your culture. This is not my culture. So I think it's important to take the fact that people are coming from different places and learn that just like we're assimilating into your culture, you need to learn some about ours.
You and then two more. And that
Okay,
one.
so I'll be quick, but I wanted to ask a question as a faculty of color who's also queer on campus. And just wanted to point out the disproportionate role that faculty of color take on as mentors to students of color, and what administration plans to do in supporting retention of faculty of color, and also our role in supporting students as well.
I think it's important that we recognize that the role that you and other faculty play carries some extra burden, and that we need to recognize that in the way we evaluate faculty, and we do evaluate faculty on a regular basis, whether they're in a adjunct position or a tenure track or a visiting position. But I think it's important to recognize that in the review of performance, and to the extent that those duties require a significant investment of time, we need to give you some time back in your teaching. So I think it's about honoring that, and rewarding that, and also recognizing that in workload issues.
Two questions from our auditorium. The first is, as a staff member who took the IDI survey, how does this translate into making students of color feel more inclusive? We design surveys that someone sees, but nothing seems to change.
The IDI that was mentioned earlier is a way to get an assessment and a baseline on our own level of cultural competence. The way that it can ultimately help improve the environment for students of color and everyone is that the person who takes the IDI also gets a plan that they can then work on increasing their cultural competence, so that over time they will become more effective in their relationships with people who are different from themselves. So it's not just taking a survey and finding out where you are and that's the end of it. You get a plan that you can constantly improve and move yourself along the scale so you get to be a really effective communicator with people who are different from yourself.
And another question, as a Latina student, President Riggs and King Ramsey, how do you explain allowing the racist slur "anchor baby" on school-approved posters in presence of freedom of speech?
I think that term is offensive, and I think that it is it's very unfortunate that it was used in that context. At the time, I think we were, and we still are, committed to free speech for students, and we recognize that things are going to be said at times that are offensive. And that is a reality of human existence. And I think President Riggs addressed that at the beginning by saying that and the students have been saying, we need to confront that language, we need to point out that it is offensive. That doesn't mean we're going to ban that language. There's a difference between banning language and addressing it, and critiquing it, and responding to it. And so I guess that's how I would answer that question.
I couldn't say it any better. I want to just take a moment while I've got the mic to thank these students for speaking out today. They stand on shoulders of students that came before them, but they are paving the way for both change in the near term and change in the long term for Gettysburg College. And my hope is that this is not the conversation, this is a conversation in a series. This is the beginning of a process. My hope is that one day we will look back at this moment in time at Gettysburg College and say this was a turning point for this community. And I just want to say thank you all for being here today. I'm going to hand it back to Jasmine.
So with that said, I also want to thank you all for coming and engaging in these difficult conversations. I urge you all to reflect deeply on all that's been said and continue the conversations in your everyday lives, such as within resident halls, the libraries, servos, the classrooms, etc. If you feel like you didn't get to voice your opinion, I welcome you to continue the conversation through Surge, our social justice blog, the Gettysburgian, etc. Lastly, we welcome you to attend LASA, BSU, and GASA meetings. They all start back up next week. These clubs aren't exclusively for students of color. There's a handout you can grab out, which the president mentioned, that lists a bunch of different social justice related events and resources you can seek out. Remember, it's our duty to do the work as well and not just put the burden on those that are already being marginalized. It's time to take action.